It was a cold Tuesday night, and little Mateus, only 7 years old, was curled up asleep in the back seat of the car. At the wheel, Eduardo drove through the city's deserted streets, just as he did every week since the death of his wife, Livia. Those nighttime drives had become a silent ritual, almost therapeutic. He wandered aimlessly, headlights cutting through the darkness, the same song playing on the radio, trying somehow to fill the echoing void that awaited him at home. Livia had been the center of Eduardo's life. Intelligent, determined co-founder of a respected law firm, an admirable woman in every sense. When the news came, his world simply collapsed. Livia had been in a violent car accident on her way home from work. The car exploded, and the body was found burned beyond recognition. To Mateus, she was more than just a mother. She was the warm embrace on cold nights, the soft voice that lulled him to sleep, the smile that filled the house with joy. But Eduardo never questioned the tragedy. He was blinded by grief. Since then, father and son had tried to carry on as best they could, piecing together the fragments of what was left. Eduardo continued working as an insurance agent, but he was on autopilot. Meanwhile, Mateus grew more withdrawn with each passing month. The shared pain kept them close, yet isolated from the rest of the world. That night, noticing his son shifting restlessly from hunger, Eduardo decided to stop at a small roadside diner. He hesitated, reluctant to break the silence that had become his refuge, but Mateus's insistent plea softened him. "Just a burger, Dad, please." With a faint, tired smile, he gave in. Upon entering, they were met by a modest yet cozy atmosphere. The lighting was soft, the walls lined with old photographs, and the air was filled with the unmistakable smell of frying food and freshly brewed coffee. Eduardo chose a quiet table in a corner, while Mateus, eyes wide with curiosity, quietly took in every detail around him. Then, suddenly, Mateus stopped, pointing discreetly and whispering with a trembling voice, "Dad, that waitress looks like Mom." Eduardo barely reacted. Inside, he chalked it up to a child's hopeful imagination, a fantasy shaped by longing. But driven by instinct, he turned to look and froze in place. There she was, brown hair tied in a simple bun, clear eyes, that same familiar walk Eduardo could never forget. His heart pounded. For a moment, it felt like the world stopped spinning. Could it be? Could it really be? Livia. She moved through the diner carrying a tray, serving another table, unaware of the storm brewing inside him. But his mind, dulled by morning and time, refused to accept what his eyes were seeing. "It can't be. She just looks like her," he muttered, trying to rationalize the impossible. But then she saw him, and in that split second, everything else vanished. Their eyes met, and the tray slipped from her hands, crashing to the floor. Her face went pale, and her voice came out trembling, barely audible. "Eduardo, is it you?" He rose slowly, as if walking on shattered glass, stunned by a mix of disbelief and fear. Mateus watched silently, wide-eyed, his little heart racing. "Livia, this can't be," Eduardo whispered, as though trying to convince himself. She rushed toward him without hesitation, eyes filled with tears, breathing uneven. Her trembling hand reached out, gently touching his face, as if she needed physical proof that he was real. "It's me, Eduardo," she said, voice cracking, tears streaming freely down her cheeks. Eduardo's face twisted in confusion and anguish, the expression of someone whose world had been turned upside down. "How? We saw the body. I buried you, Livia." Without answering, she quickly pulled them both outside the diner, glancing around nervously as if someone might be watching. Her whole body trembled, eyes scanning the parking lot in panic. Then she stopped, looked into Eduardo's eyes with quiet pain, and said, "I didn't die. I had to pretend I was dead." The silence that followed was suffocating. Eduardo stared at her, stunned, his brow furrowed in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" She took a deep breath, summoning the strength to say aloud the truth she had hidden for 2 long years. That night, as she was leaving the office, Livia had been ambushed by armed men. They knew exactly who she was. They knew her wealthy background, her routine, and worst of all, they knew she was a mother. That's what they used against her. "They kidnapped me, Eduardo," she said, her voice quivering. They told me that if I tried to escape, they'd kill you and Mateus. They forced me to hand over everything, my documents, phone, car, and gave it all to another woman. She lowered her eyes for a moment. She was the one who had the accident. She died in my place. She cried softly, curled up like a frightened child, the fear still clinging to her. Her body trembled as if haunted by those dark days. Eduardo, overwhelmed by the weight of her revelation, fell to his knees in front of her, his chest tight, his gaze lost, pain, relief, anger, and love all surging at once. "Why now, Livia? Why are you here?" he asked, his voice breaking as he tried to process the unexpected reunion. "I didn't want you to see me," she replied, barely audible. "I was just passing through, got a job in the diner's kitchen." She paused, as if reliving the moment everything fell apart again. "But when I saw you and Mateus there, so close, so real, I couldn't take it. I couldn't walk away." She had thought about disappearing again. It seemed like the safest option, convinced the danger still lingered. Vanishing, like before, felt like the only way to protect them. But Eduardo wouldn't let her go. He held her by the shoulders, firmly, looking straight into her eyes. "You're not leaving again," he said, resolute. "I'm Mateus's father. I'm your husband. And from now on, I'm your shield. These men won't steal anything else from us. Not my wife. Not the mother of my son." And on a clear morning, 2 years after the nightmare began, Eduardo, Livia, and Mateus sat down to have breakfast together at home. Livia took her usual seat, as if she'd never been gone. Eduardo held her hand tightly, a silent promise in his grip. "We're home now, Livia. For real this time." She smiled through tears, her eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Mateus ran to her, wrapped his little arms around her, and rested his head on her chest. "You're not going away again, right, Mommy?" She kissed his forehead gently. "Never again, my love." And in that moment, time began to move once more. Because when love survives the impossible, it can even conquer death. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment below what you felt, and share it with someone who needs to believe that true love can endure even death. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any of our moving stories.